All right. Back from camp.
Dude, look at this haircut. Look at this haircut.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Not bad.
This is not my style. This is not my style. There's like a little hole right here. I don't know if
It turned out
the camera's gonna
that
pick it up.
Sit down, pipe down.
But I feel like Elvis.
It's a good cut.
And I don't like how Elvis looks.
You know what? I mean? Sometimes
like
a little throwback is good.
Sometimes a little throwback is good. We have one more thing to talk about before we leave, but basically.
And we have to address recent news. I like our podcast. We've been trying really hard to try to just talk about things we love and things like that. But
yeah.
I feel like this is something
we have to talk about. You were reading. What were you reading?
So on Politica, the title of the article was "We haven't seen a pardon as sweeping as Hunter Biden's in generations." I've always just kind of simply thought clemency and pardons as fairly simple. You just say, yes, he's not going to be considered guilty anymore or something like that. But when I read this article, that's when I realized, yeah, there are different types of clemency. You can grant somebody full sweeping clemency, which is in this case what was granted to the son of Joe Biden. And yes, it is within his right as the president of the United States to do so. I don't love what happened here, mainly because according to Politico, this pardon essentially erases his last 11 years of anything he's done that was improper or even considered felonies. It essentially says everything is wiped clean.
Let's pause right here and let's just stay on this idea for a little bit. So it's not that he's forgiving an act. He's forgiving anything ever committed for this
in the last 11 years.
Basically decade.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of things can happen in a decade.
Yeah.
A lot of empires can fall and rise. A lot of, I don't know, your favorite team in football or basketball might have like a switch on all its players, right. And now it's over. Now you definitely don't have a hope to win any championship.
For probably a year now or something, he's been saying that he's not going to pardon his son because nobody's above the law and he trusts the American law.
Right. These are words from our current president, Joe Biden, right?
There's like a video out there right now.
There's several videos out there. The one I love the most is the one about Jean-Pierre, I don't know, this is the White House spokesperson. Right. Her saying he's not gonna do it, but being so serious about it too, being so
100%
like everything I say and everything I have ever said is always true. Believe me, because I'm in the White House.
Biden and whisperer,
yeah, because I know everything here. Like, no, you don't. And anybody
not a
who
good
claims that is incredibly ignorant. Like, no, I don't know everything.
But what's funny about this video that I'm talking about is that, and this was done by, I think, Tim Pool, every single time one of the media members would say, like, oh, yeah, he's not going to pardon his son. And then the next video would be sped up. And then it would be sped up and it would be sped up. But by the end of the video, it's just like chipmunk talk, like you can't even understand what they're saying, but it's just that's how many videos there are of the media members trying to say and cover for him, and then at the end they were all wrong. It's pretty damning for the media, and what it tells us is that first of all, the media either one doesn't know anything about it, or they are probably the marketing arm of the White House in this case, but only when the White House is inhabited by somebody on the
somebody on the opposite side.
Okay,
opposite side of the aisle.
Yes, you said it.
This is what I wanted to say too, right? So Mr. Biden forgiving his son is a great example of a president using his position of power and influence for his own benefit.
Yeah. And unfortunately, this is a necessity, by the way, in terms of to balance out the three branches of the government. I actually still do, even now with this situation, believe in the power of the clemency, that it resides only solely within the president.
Yeah, I do not blame him. That is his son. If I was there, I would probably have done the exact same thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, then he should have just out with it. You can't. Why would you spend a whole entire half a year or a year saying you're not going to do something and then do it? That feels certainly dishonest.
That's obviously disingenuous. Yeah, extremely disingenuous.
Because
you're lying to the public, as you have been for so many other things.
Right, but what I feel here was that he said that with the hopes of getting reelected, and that means that there is multiple layers to this. It feels like it's not just lying to lie; it's lying. It's a multivariable problem. To gain another 4-year And then even after he essentially left the race, almost felt like he got pushed off the cliff there.
He got pushed off very aggressively.
Right, he left the race, right? But then he continued this lie, I think, because he was probably told by the people in power, which, I don't want to get too conspiratorial
but
here.
Look, everybody does
that he had to say
everybody
that.
does whatever is convenient for them.
Right.
Trump is accused of abusing his power constantly.
Right.
This is a great example.
This is pretty abusive.
Yeah, this is a great example of somebody on the left abusing their power. Right. Let's not be such hypocrites.
Right.
So let's admit it.
How about this then? Do you think that this now essentially completely, if there was ever a quote unquote higher moral ground or something of that in this situation, I think they left it. And I think when Biden did this, it basically signals to Donald Trump, go ahead and pardon J6 people, because we can't even talk smack about it anymore.
Yes. No, there are familial ties here. There are
that's very different. Actually,
business ties.
Yeah, business ties, familial ties to the Hunter Biden situation with his dad and Burisma and all of those things, and which makes this really, really dicey of a pardon. Yeah. So I would say, at a bare minimum, you left the moral high ground, and now you really cannot say, oh, pardoning the J6 people in any way, shape, or form is improper use of power.
It's not. It's now expected. Yeah. He is going to forgive all these people who were
or offering back pay for the military members who were forced out of the COVID.
Yeah, that too was extremely. I'm looking forward to,
because they didn't want the vaccine.
Yes, just simply because they were denying a questionable product being put inside their body. Like, we get it.
The healthiest members in the world, the people who can, run a marathon tomorrow, being told that they have to take the jab or else leave the military. Can you imagine if you're out in Afghanistan and they're telling you have to take this jab? You're like, dude, I'm literally in a war zone here.
Like, I don't have time for this. Yeah. I'm busy doing other things.
There has to be a right to have a president of the United States be able to say, I pardon somebody or a group of people, or offer clemency.
Oh yeah, I questioned you about that. Right?
Your take though on this was that we should maybe consider removing clemency rights to a president.
Right, because why does the president have to be the one making the decision, right? Why can't it be some?
Because it's a pretty powerful. It's a pretty powerful.
It is an extreme. It is one of the most outstanding powers. A president has. Yeah, exactly. Like, he's also limited in what he can do, right? He can't just. He's not a dictator. This is not a dictatorship.
Because he could do executive orders, but these executive falls off the moment he leaves office.
Yes.
But once you pardon somebody, they're permanently pardoned.
That's going to impact the lives of the person even after you're dead or something. Yeah. So
I would argue though that we should retain the right to clemency through the president. I will also say that the reason this power is very important is because you need to be able to balance out the powers between the legislative, the judicial, and then the executive. And here's the thing is, for example, the Supreme Court sits with pretty good majority of conservatives.
Yeah.
So I would imagine
it's going to be a conservative country for the next 4 years. Yeah.
Right. I would imagine that Democrats should actually be very glad that Biden has the right to pardon. Because if there's something that these Supreme Court justices do or say that the president feels like he needs to balance it out, he has that right to do so. This was probably not what our founding fathers had in mind when it came to clemency.
I do think that it's overreaching in a certain sense, but historically, we have seen how injustices occur. Right. Things go wrong, even when we don't want them to go wrong. So having this power of being able to give somebody a get out of jail for free card,
like let's say somebody's DNA comes clean, and it turns out like he didn't, SA somebody, and it was assumed that he did, but the DNA comes clean, and it turned out to be somebody else's DNA or things like that. I think the president should pardon somebody, and that's probably why this kind of stuff.
When you have such especially now, such a big body of governance, right? I guess having a little bit of that get out of jail for free card is going to be useful, because there is so much to go through sometimes. There's so many hoops that you have to
check each other's power.
We concluded at the end, right, that giving the president this power is just connecting the circle again, or connecting the dots, or the triangle, however you want to call it, in between these three branches. You're just connecting the
Yeah.
dots and being able to give it the president a power like this one.
Yes.
And I hope that many more.
And at least we're only
agree.
giving one person that power, right?
Yeah,
It's not
it's
like you're giving like the
a
whole
group.
Congress or you're,
Yeah, it's not like you're giving hundreds of
yeah, it would be
people or
insane.
dozens of people the
Yeah.
power to
And
be.
even the VP doesn't have that power.
Yeah, it's
or
exclusively
only
to
one
the
person
head
does.
of the executive branch.
So
right?
if
The
you were
president.
to narrow it down, I would say like at a bare minimum, it's almost in its own way a check.
It is.
Yeah.
It is totally.
Yeah.
It falls within that philosophy of, hey, we're gonna scrutinize each other. We're gonna judge each other, all for the sake of our own well-being, because we know that somebody can abuse their power sometimes, and then some others don't. So let's just keep that
and
circle
generally
going.
we don't
Let's
want to
keep
trust,
the circle connected.
we generally don't want to trust any one branch of the government.
No.
I think that
too much power. There's way too much power. Thank you so much for watching today, taking the time to get a little peek inside our minds. But yeah, please have conversations with the people around you. Hey, do you think that was a good thing? What does it mean for Biden to have lied about not pardoning his son and then actually pardoning him in the end?
Right. And what does it mean that now Trump gets to pardon the J6 people? Like, does that in a sense tie the knots together? And actually, one last thing, if I may, the reason I even say, I personally don't usually like the argument of, oh, well, he did it, that I get to do it. That's not my favorite type of argument. I think that's actually generally pretty flawed in a debate.
A little childish, I could agree with.
But I will say this much, though. Some of the media articles that I've read, the justification for this specific action of pardoning his own son, Hunter, is that it's been done before, and as a result, it is acceptable. And I'm like, okay, well, if you're using that argument, then I think it's also fair then to extrapolate that argument and say, then doesn't that by default mean that it's been done before, so Donald Trump can pardon J6 people? So that's the only reason I'm using that same argument. I think that if you're going to extrapolate your argument all the way through, then I would say that's a fair extrapolation. What do you guys think?
Please subscribe to the channel. Please make sure to like. Give us a comment down below. Tell us, how does this pardon make you feel? Would you do it if you were in office and your son was charged with alleged criminal activities?
Yeah, I guess that's it, guys. See y'all later.